An invitation shows up in your mailbox, you're genuinely excited for about 10 seconds, and then the panic sets in. Garden wedding, black tie, beach ceremony. What does any of that actually mean for what you put on your body? I've had so many conversations with women who love a good celebration but freeze the moment the dress code line on the invitation doesn't match anything hanging in their closet. So today we're doing something a little different. Instead of a straight list of mistakes, I'm walking you through a decision guide, 7 wedding scenarios you're likely to actually get invited to, and exactly how to think through silhouette, fabric, length, and color for each one, so you're never standing in your closet at 11 at night with no idea what to wear. Here's the promise. By the end of this, you'll have a simple mental framework for 7 distinct wedding situations, so the next invitation that lands in your mailbox gets you excited instead of anxious. Let's start with the one that trips people up the most. Scenario 1 is the daytime garden wedding. Think grass, maybe a tent, afternoon light, guests standing for a good chunk of the ceremony. The decision here comes down to 2 things: breathable fabric and a hem that won't drag through grass. A midi-length dress in linen blend or cotton poplin moves beautifully in outdoor air and won't cling if the afternoon warms up. Wrap-style dresses work wonderfully here too, since they define the waist without needing anything structured underneath. And the tie can be adjusted through the day as you sit, stand, and move around a reception that's often spread across a lawn. Color-wise, this is where soft florals, sage green, warm terracotta, or a soft yellow all feel completely at home, and a fabric with a bit of texture. Eyelet cotton, a subtle jacquard, photographs beautifully in natural daylight in a way flat fabrics sometimes don't. What doesn't work as well is heavy satin or anything with a long, structured train-like hem. Grass and delicate fabric are not friends, and you'll spend the whole reception worried about grass stains instead of enjoying yourself. A wide brim hat or a structured sun hat can genuinely double as both sun protection and a styling statement for an afternoon ceremony, which is a detail worth considering if the invitation mentions an outdoor setting with no tent. If low block heels or a wedge feel more secure on grass than a stiletto, that's not a compromise. That's just smart dressing for the actual ground you'll be standing on. Scenario 2 is the formal evening or black tie wedding, and this is where fabric weight and structure do a lot of the work. Think floor length or a dramatic midi in a fabric with real body to it, crepe, a structured jersey, or a matte satin all photograph beautifully under evening lighting. A well-placed waist seam or a wrap silhouette gives a long, elegant line from shoulder to hem, and jewel tones like emerald, sapphire, or deep burgundy read as intentional and formal in a way pastels sometimes don't after dark. A sleeve, whether it's a long fitted sleeve, a bell sleeve, or even a structured cap sleeve, also tends to read more formal than fully bare shoulders once the sun goes down, simply because it adds visual weight that matches the occasion. This is also the scenario where a statement earring and a clutch genuinely earn their place, since the whole look is built around a bit of polish and drama. A metallic or beaded clutch specifically photographs well under the low, warm lighting most evening receptions use. I always tell clients, if the invitation says black tie and you're debating between 2 dresses, pick the one with more fabric weight and a more defined waist. That combination reads formal from across the room, which is exactly what the occasion is asking for. Scenario 3 is the beach or destination wedding, and the decision framework flips almost completely from Scenario 2. Heavy structured fabric fights you here, between the heat, the sand, and usually some wind. You want something light that moves with you rather than against you. A flowy maxi in a soft crepe or a lightweight chiffon overlay lets you look put together without overheating, and a lower, more relaxed heel or a dressy sandal handles sand infinitely better than a stiletto ever will. Color opens up beautifully here too. This is genuinely the one scenario where a bold print, a coral, or a bright coastal blue all feel completely appropriate rather than trying too hard, and a natural fiber like linen or a linen blend tends to handle humidity far better than a synthetic fabric that can cling or feel heavy by the end of the afternoon. One thing I'd steer you away from is anything with a long, dramatic train, simply because sand and wind will have their way with it by the time photos happen. And if the ceremony itself is on sand, a wedge sandal or even a barefoot-friendly dress code note on the invitation is worth planning around ahead of time rather than discovering it that morning. Scenario 4 is the religious or culturally formal ceremony. Many church weddings and a number of other faith traditions ask for covered shoulders and a more modest neckline and hemline during the ceremony itself. The easiest decision here is building in layers you can adjust. A beautiful dress with a matching or coordinating shrug, bolero, or lightweight jacket that covers the shoulders during the ceremony and can come off for the reception if the venue allows it. A boat neck or a modest V paired with a knee-length or midi hem keeps you comfortable and respectful without feeling like you're dressing down for the occasion. And a 3/4 or full sleeve on the dress itself, rather than relying entirely on a separate layer, tends to be the most comfortable long-term solution if the ceremony runs long. This is a case where checking the specific venue or officiant's guidance ahead of time genuinely saves you from a wardrobe scramble in the parking lot. So a quick question to the couple or a look at the invitation wording is worth the 2 minutes it takes. See, and packing that lightweight layer, even when you're not fully sure it's required, costs you nothing and solves the problem completely if it turns out you do need it. Scenario 5 is the stylish city or loft venue wedding. Think exposed brick, string lights, a cocktail hour feel, even if it's technically a full reception. This is where a jumpsuit genuinely gets to shine as an alternative to a dress, especially a wide leg silhouette in a fluid fabric that still photographs as dressed up rather than casual. A wide leg also tends to be one of the most comfortable options for a night that involves a lot of standing, mingling, and eventually dancing. If a dress feels more like you, a sleek sheath or a fit and flare in a rich, solid color works beautifully against that kind of industrial chic backdrop. And a slightly shorter hem than you'd choose for a garden wedding actually suits this setting better, since the whole aesthetic leans modern rather than romantic. Metallic accessories, a bold lip, or a structured clutch all read as intentional here in a way they might feel like overkill at, say, a garden wedding. The through line for this scenario is confidence in a clean, modern silhouette rather than anything overly romantic or fussy. Scenario 6 is the cold weather or winter wedding, where the real decision isn't just the dress, it's how you layer over it without losing the silhouette you worked to get right. A structured coat or a tailored blazer in a complementary color, worn open over a fitted dress, keeps you warm for photos outside without hiding the shape of the outfit underneath. Velvet is wonderful here as a fabric choice, since it has real weight and warmth built in and photographs rich under both natural winter light and indoor lighting. And a long-sleeve dress in velvet or a heavier crepe means you're not relying entirely on an outer layer to stay comfortable once you're seated indoors. Deep jewel tones and rich neutrals like camel or chocolate brown both feel completely at home in a winter palette. And this is one of the few scenarios where a richly textured, tight, or opaque hosiery in a complementary shade genuinely adds to the look, rather than being purely functional. What I'd think twice about is a thin, unlined fabric with no plan for outdoor photos, since you'll either be freezing in the pictures or missing them entirely while you warm up inside. Scenario 7, and this is really the decision behind all the other decisions, is what I'd call the color and pattern check. Regardless of which of the 6 settings above you're heading to, there are 2 quick filters worth running before you commit to any dress. First, is it obviously bridal, so full white, ivory, or a heavily embellished silhouette that could be mistaken for the bride's own dress from a distance? If there's any doubt, it's simple enough to choose a different shade and remove the question entirely. And this same check is worth extending to overly formal white adjacent shades like champagne or blush in a heavily beaded style, since those can read closer to bridal than they mean to under photography lighting. Second, does the fabric and cut let you move the way the day actually requires, sitting through a ceremony, dancing later, maybe walking on grass or sand? A dress that photographs perfectly standing still but fights you the moment you sit down isn't actually the right decision for a multi-hour event, no matter how much you love it on the hanger. A quick trial run, sitting down in the dress at home, raising your arms, taking a few real steps, tells you more about whether a piece will actually work for the day than staring at it in the mirror ever will. So here's how this all comes together. Every wedding you're invited to is really answering 4 questions. How formal is it? What's the setting? What time of day? And what season? And once you know those 4 answers, the fabric weight, hemline, color palette, and shoe choice mostly decide themselves rather than feeling like guesswork. A linen midi for a sunny garden afternoon, a crepe gown for a black tie evening, a flowy maxi for sand and heat, a covered shoulder option for a ceremony that asks for it, a sleek jumpsuit for a loft venue, a structured coat over a fitted dress for winter. 7 different answers to the same underlying question of what actually works for the day ahead of you. I think of a client I'll call Renata, who used to buy a new dress for every wedding out of sheer uncertainty about what would be right. And once she had this framework in her head, she told me she started reaching for pieces already in her closet with real confidence instead of starting from scratch every single time. And I hear a version of that same relief from so many of you in the comments too. Which of these 7 scenarios is coming up on your calendar next, or which one has tripped you up before? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to help you think through the specifics. And if this kind of decision guide made getting dressed for your next event feel a little easier, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.